So, Xebialabs, that's us. If there's one thing I want you to take away from tonight, it's our name, right? Xebialabs, we deliver software, and I'll go into that. I'll help you remember. You'll see this a lot. So if it appears in a slide and you haven't yet entered the competition to win that most amazing speaker, then please feel free to do so and let me know if it doesn't work. It'll also make it look like you're taking photos of my presentation. See? Right, so Xebialabs, who are we? We're a software company, and really what we do is help large organizations, enterprise organizations, deliver software more efficiently, quicker, and safer. That's really our goal. That's our mission. We know our mission. And we try everything to make that happen. And it's not very easy. And I think a lot of people will start talking about the culture of an organization. And Polly's done an excellent job as well to kind of demonstrate how we can build that in. And one of the key features of all of our parts of our platform is the transparency aspect, making things visible so people know what's going on. And I'll come into that. We've really picked 5 ways in which we can help organizations. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the slideware, but what we try to do is recognize where the problems are. And for most of our customers, the problems are in things like shifting to the cloud or containerization or connecting lots of pipelines. And that's what we're going to talk about mostly today. Right? There are pipelines of delivery throughout your organization. And where we can help, really help, is by joining those up. And that's really the kind of power of the platform. Of course, we're talking about tooling. And we produce, this is actually a product in its own right. It has its own life now. We host it on our website. It goes through iterations. You can interact with it. So we treat it as a product as well, and we deliver it with our software. But this is an ever-changing landscape. And for people who are responsible for delivering products and software, there's a minefield of decisions to make. What we try to do is categorize as best as we can in terms of the capabilities of those tools in this beautiful chart. It won't help your children with their science exams. We have people coming up to us at the stand saying, oh, this would be brilliant. No, please don't use it for your science exams. But what it does do is kind of organize things and really tells a bit of a story. And that story really is about how we develop and deliver software. And actually, within organizations that we deal with, you're already solving that. So Barry asked you to put your hands up about your large organizations. And I would bet, and I hear this a lot, that people have a myriad of these tools, duplicating the tools, multiple instances of the tooling, right? So trying to corral that and actually make sense of how we deliver software is the first problem to solve, I think. And you all are and work with and hire very clever people. Notice the subtle... You all work with very clever people who can actually engineer solutions out of thin air, right? And the technology is not the problem here. The technology will allow you to build a pipeline to deliver code. And if you are a feature team, if you are a small company working from a garage, if you are a group of 3 or 4 people, you can very quickly deliver your applications to your customers, right? We're not pretending that this is impossible. Absolutely not. But as you grow and as you scale and as you think about some of the patterns that our friends Dan Terhorst North or Jez Humble or Dave Farley, they're all talking about continuous delivery, making sure continuous integration happens, you're all solving these problems, right? And it's very easy from within a team to think we've got this sussed. But actually, there's more than just the development of the software happening. We have to get that software in front of our customers. if we're a regulated industry, we have to pay attention to a whole bunch of things. I'm going to race through some of these, but actually there are many more stakeholders in this process as you scale, and you all know this, than maybe is apparent at first glance. Right? And so we're talking then about the delivery mechanisms, the paths we have to go through to get our software through to our customers, our end users. Now, what I've put up here is actually a fairly typical pipeline, and I've called out tools that everyone knows. So we're talking about, say, Jenkins, for example, to manage things like deployment. Such an innocent conversation, right? But that's not the case. For every release process we find, when you start building more and more complex applications, the deployment question becomes quite a significant one. And so I'll hopefully give you an indication of how our platform addresses this particular problem. This is real data. There are customers there with so many dependencies between their components. The challenge isn't delivering them. The challenge is knowing what we've delivered and how they interact with each other. And actually, I don't want to talk Bryce up too much, but that's a conversation that perhaps Weaveworks will have a lot of opinions on. But what we do is we actually wrap that process up. And so we can start to understand how we deliver software and make it happen at an organizational level. Right? And I will show you how that manifests itself. And the reason why this is important is because this is how you scale. Once you join the dots, connect your pipelines, understand what your goals are, model your applications, model your release process, you are now in a position to apply that across your delivery teams. And that's how people scale. Now, I did have an extra slide here to say, look, we're not about cookie cuttering and making sure everything is identical. We appreciate that that's not the case. But that's one of the things we're striving for. The mechanisms of delivering our value should be well-worn roads. They should be easy to follow paths to our customers. Then we can concentrate on putting the value in what we're delivering. Now, we do this, and there's two of the three components we offer, and maybe the subtitle takeaway I want you to get from this is we know how to release your applications, and we think of that as a very different conversation to how we deploy your components and your applications onto your infrastructure. We've separated those two terms. There's a practical reason for that. We're often coming up against customers who say, we deploy our stuff. We use Chef, we use Ansible, we use Puppet, we use Kubernetes, we use Terraform, we use X, Y, Z, Z, Y. But then we're now talking about, well, okay, but what happens between those technical things? How do you orchestrate the release as a whole? And the way we do that is we model your release process as well. So I'm going to switch to demo mode. Right, what will be really annoying here, this is an enterprise product, so I will probably have to log in. I'll probably have to end my show. That's annoying. I have done this before. What will be really annoying about this is that I'll probably have to log in. But actually, where I wanted to start was at the end. And that confounds my sales director over there, Willow, because he doesn't know where I'm going to start with these conversations. But actually, the reason why we do this is so that you can improve it. And you can only improve something if you know what it's doing, if you can measure it. And we pay a lot of attention to measuring what's going through your release pipelines or your software delivery area. Okay, and we do that in ways that give you actionable data. Right? So what you're looking at here is one of the outputs of running lots of releases through my pipelines. Right? So I'm collecting data and generating reports without you having to write any code for this. Again, you can do this. You can write your own application monitoring and you can write your own reporting tools, but there is stuff out of the box that you can take straight away, day one, and you can make improvements on day one. And so this type of dashboard, will show you things like, how are we on our journey to automation? If I'm talking to a very low-level techie guy, and I don't mean low in the sort of hierarchy of things, but I mean someone who really knows their stuff, right? Someone who knows about joining the dots, then their journey might be automate everything. And that might be their single-minded focus. And it's a good practice, right? Relentless automation can really drive out waste in our process. Well, we can track how we are on that process. And actually, in a large enterprise, some things haven't been automated yet. And some people are at different points of the journey. And that's an important thing to note when you're using our platform. And I'll show you how, but we can take you on that journey of automation. That connecting your pipelines or connecting your activities. But we can also give you insight into what's actually holding you back. Right? So by tracking your release processes, we can start to gather the releases that cost us the most, that cause us the most problems in terms of delay or errors. We can talk about the tasks that cost you the most. Right? So this is all what's coming out of running your pipelines through our platform. Well, what does that mean? Right? And this is a 30-minute demo, and I'm going to squash probably 2 hours of conversation in here. I did want to pick up one thing, and it was the question Bryce asked actually, which was, can we use this data for evil? And obviously, yes, right? You can start having that gamification and understanding that we're better than that team and so on. That's not the culture that we're trying to grow here, is it? So if we can be transparent and actually start to look at this data and help each other out, where can I apply my effort? That's really the goal of these dashboards.
That's why wait for technical release one day, unwrapped into one line.
Sorry?
Wait for technical release one, isn't it wrapped into one line?
Wait for... Oh, because these have actually happened in many releases. So so I can't see these ones. These have actually happened. That's a really good question. So the question was, why am I seeing lots of repeated data? These are my usual suspects, right? And they've actually happened in multiple release executions. So that to me is a flag, and this is filtered data, but that to me is a flag that says, I've actually got a problem with these phases of activity. There's a lot of wait time in multiple releases where we've waited 22 hours for this to complete. Yeah? And I can actually drill into that, and this is where I have to log in. There's some AI here, there's predictive DevOps, which is actually something that we are offering. But I can actually go into that release that caused that problem, and I can now interrogate it. So what you're looking at right now is an executed release pipeline, which is a collection of tasks that have happened and executed till completion. And so we can now do retrospectives on this particular task, and we can find out data from it. So think about your retrospectives at the kind of development level, but we can have those at the release level. And if I had much longer to talk to you, I would be telling you about things like our release value stream, which actually collects all of those problematic releases up in terms of the delay they presented or the failures they presented. So there's a wealth of conversation just around the reporting. But this isn't just reporting, right? This is execution. So when we're executing our release processes, we actually get to sit down with each other and collaborate and actually design what it means to release software. So we create templates. And at the technical level, like the continuous delivery, I'm delivering a bunch of stuff, I could have a template that documents and will execute all of the steps to get my application into production. Apologies to our friends at BMC here. The ServiceNow component could equally be Remedy, and we support Remedy and we support a whole range of technologies that are your sources of truth. We are a bus for moving stuff from A to B. You've got systems of record like Jira, like Rally, like Azure DevOps. You've got systems of record like Remedy, and actually you're communicating as you release software between those two ends, and maybe some in between. So some of Polly's goals may be fulfilled by the technical delivery of our mobile app, for example. So we could update that and say, goal done, and in an automated way. There are APIs that we can talk to. But that's how we model a release process. Now you'll notice that some of the activities in this release process are very simply described by deploy to X, deploy to environment X. Well, we have the ability to have that simple conversation. So as well as the release component of our tool, we can actually help you deploy your applications. Now, I don't want your necks to ache too much between me switching between different use cases, right? But the deployment one's really important, because within that, get this environment up to this version of our application so our testers can test it conversation, there is a whole host of complexity. And we have attacked this problem in a very unique way. So we actually let you model what your applications are. Oh, by the way, I was so jealous of Polly getting sirens in her video. So please don't erase that. So what we can do is we can actually say, look, what type of application are we deploying? Describe it to me. And our deployment component has the ability to represent those applications as packages of components. Now that is really powerful, because now your developers are concentrating on building better and better versions of those components, be they Docker images or EAR files or WAR files or .NET applications and DLLs, right? They can be described at the component level, and their CI tools package them up as an app. Now there is a world of conversation in that aspect. But what that means is you can now have a very simple conversation about deploying that app. I can say, make an environment. So let me just pick something like this. Make an environment version 1 of my Azure Kubernetes service. And let's see if I can find my environment. This is me. Let's try typing. Right, hold on. Let's try this again. These are the demo fairies. Let's deploy that version. In a canary fashion to our AKS cluster. And what we do with that information, he says, oh, right, I'm going to show you a different one. It actually doesn't matter what application I choose, right? The point of this is I can deploy my application. This is rehearsal to my environment. And I have the ability to actually restrict this. So part of my problem is I'm logged in as an admin and I've got so many different environments to choose from. I can restrict this to my user, my role, my team, my operation. And what we're doing is we're making the conversation simple, and that allows us to generate the steps. And this is why we're different to most deployment tools in this space. Generate the steps to get that environment up to spec. Okay, this is really powerful, because this means if my environment changes, my deployment can automatically be taken care of. If I'm delivering to multiple data centers, then I'm going to repeat these steps, and I can even orchestrate them in parallel or canary fashion and achieve some of my technical goals in that space. But the real value here is, as a release manager or release orchestrator or product owner, I know that's happening as part of my pipeline. And the other kind of benefit of representing your pipelines in this way is when we're running these releases, and let's move over to a view that may be a bit more visible. So I actually set up a release process. I'm not very imaginative with names, Barry, so apologies. But I've set up a release process, and what I'm actually trying to do here is cover all of the activities that happen in a release, and they don't necessarily have to be the technical ones, right? So there's a lot of bookkeeping that goes around releasing software. Our development teams are delivering in maybe sprints. They're solving coding problems. They're working to stories in their ticketing tools. And I want to know how we're getting on with this release. This may be a scheduled release in some organizations, right? And I've got many ways of displaying that information. And I can be tracking this in a very passive way. So let's tidy this up a little bit. In a very passive way. And actually understanding it from the context of the features I'm delivering. Now, if I was to continue this demo, what I would then sort of show you is I don't even need the people who are delivering these features to have to get involved in touching this tooling, right? They can work in the tools that they are comfortable in. So if I'm a product owner and I'm doing things like tracking a particular story, then maybe the tool that I'm working in is Jira, right? And if I'm in the business of logging in yet again to a tool, doing this as one user is quite artificial. But if I'm in the business of actually doing things like descoping features from a release, then maybe I can just do that from the tool that I work in, day out. And if I then go back to, and I'm tracking this as another user, if I then go back to this level, I've descoped that release, Barry's most excellent Meetup release. These things take care of themselves, right? And that's kind of where this is going. Now, to deliver those features, maybe my development teams are just merging pull requests, right? So they kick off a process that interacts with this, runs the pipelines to deliver the software. And that's really where I'll probably leave it because I'm short of time. But if you want to have more discussions about how we orchestrate these pipelines and allow organizations to scale their development effort and to actually do this in a journey type approach, because we're not going to change everyone's behaviors on day one, right? But what we're trying to do is understand how we release software, work with the teams that are doing this well, and bring them into our pipeline so that we can report on how good we are at doing this and give insights back to those teams so they can improve them. And that's what Xebialabs do.